here, guys, ready to do this comparison video. The first of a few comparison videos I want to do between the Xiaomi Mi 6X against the Mi 8 SE. It's been an interesting time testing the Mi 6X in the last couple of days against the Mi 8 SE, and I'm ready. I've been kind of spending the time taking the photos, doing those kind of camera comparison between these two phones for the last couple of days. It's taken a while, guys, but I'm here now to share a bit of my findings thus far, and just kind of wanted to just jump in first off with the quick specs of the phones that we're going to be looking at right here. So first off, let's look at the specs of the phones right here and kind of see what kind of comparison we're going to look at here. The major question, like I mentioned, is what is the Snapdragon performance going to be between these phones? We have a Snapdragon 660 on the Mi 6X. It's running 6 GB of RAM, and I'm running the 128 GB version. This phone has been snappy, and that blue color, I'm telling you guys, it has been a joy to use. I'm using it here kind of at the in the evening, kind of twilight hours, and you see at every moment that you see it, it kind of takes a different look. I've really loved using this phone thus far, and just kind of looking first through the camera specs of this phone. There we have the dual 12 megapixel and 20 megapixel setup. So this is a dual 12 megapixel f1.8 aperture, which is kind of interesting because this is actually now I think probably one of the lowest price phones that you can get with that f1.8 aperture, and that secondary shooter on the rear is a 20 megapixel f1.8 aperture. So honestly, at least on paper, this should be a really, really great shooter. I'm really impressed, at least with those figures right off the bat. And as a secondary camera, we have the 20 megapixel f1.8 aperture there. So I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they have not spared. They have not kind of cheapened out on the actual camera sensor here on the Mi 6X. And there you see it's that dual shooter, and I think they're doing that because the Mi 6X, if you guys don't remember this, it is going to be the Xiaomi Mi A2, and that is a really popular phone. It's becoming one of their most popular phones right now. So I think maybe that's why they're putting so much effort into this camera right now. Now let's look at the Xiaomi Mi 8 SE, and this phone, as you guys have seen in some of my coverage and camera comparisons, I've done quite a bit with it thus far. It's been a great camera, a joy to use so far, and obviously with the AMOLED panel, the photos on screen look really great. Now, just quick rundown of the specs on this one. Snapdragon 710, 6 GB of RAM. This is a 64 GB version I'm running here. Screen size is pretty similar. 5.88 inch versus the 5.99 inch on the Mi 6X. And the battery size is actually very similar. It's actually just 110 milliampere more at 3120 there. But now looking at the camera specs, this one is running the 12 megapixel plus 5 megapixel rear camera sensor. So it's a f1.9 on that primary shooter, and it is running an f2.0 on that 5 megapixel secondary shooter. Now, talking about that front-facing camera, if you guys haven't seen my camera review, definitely go check it out. It took me a while to do, guys, and as you saw there, this Mi 8 SE front camera shooter is performing about as well as the front camera on the Mi 8. In fact, I would say, if not just for processing power, it is actually performing as good as the Mi 8. So this camera, the front-facing camera, has been really good in my experience thus far. But it doesn't matter what I say, because I think the reality is that the camera comparison and the photos are really going to be the ones to kind of give the assessment here. So have a look, guys. Have a look at my comparison shots between the Xiaomi Mi 6X and the Mi 8 SE, as well as my rear and front-facing camera shots and videos. I've included there also, for you guys who were asking, some low-light shots, including some portrait shots. Have a look through these kind of videos. Have a look through some of the footage here, and let me know, and we'll kind of revisit on the other side. Here's the front-facing camera on the Mi 6X, handling stabilization pretty well. I mean, it's doing pretty well overall. A little bit of a overexposure in the back there, but nothing that's too terrible. Colors look good. Overall, I'd say it looks pretty decent. And this is the front-facing camera on the Mi 8 SE. And I would say it looks pretty good, stabilizing really well. Definitely getting some overexposure in the back, but I think it's just the lighting of the day overall. And, you know, I think it looks pretty good overall. And here is the rear-facing camera on the Mi 6X. Pretty stable overall. Good colors. Obviously watching this on the LCD panel, so a little bit biased, but pretty good colors overall. And here is the rear-facing video on the Mi 8 SE. And this was a really top performer in my earlier test, and it is definitely showing its prowess here. Really looking good, and for the price, I think it's definitely doing a great job overall. So what'd you guys think? I mean, to be honest, it's a toss-up. It really is a toss-up on some of those. And, you know, that's the question I've been asking. Did the Mi 6X perform to the level that I expected? Or did the Mi 8 SE really run away with it? Did it really just prove with its really fantastic specs and with that AMOLED screen and with that kind of dual and 20 megapixel front camera shooter there, did it take the show? In my findings, to be honest with you guys, there was a lot to like from both phones, but there are a few key areas where I really felt that the Mi 6X just stole the show. And I'm going to tell you guys where those were, at least let's see if you notice them. Looking through those portrait shots, I was really surprised. The Mi 8 SE really had trouble with the getting that at the 2.5 meter level, getting those portrait shots right. And you probably noticed that in the images. Some of those portrait shots were like kind of unfinished. There were some areas that were a little more blurred than others. It was really strange. And I tried a couple times with those portrait shots to get them to work, and they just didn't work, and it was really strange. I think there may be something up with software on the Mi 8 SE. It's such a new phone, so maybe in a future software update I can do another comparison of those in portrait mode. But honestly, if we're talking about portrait mode, the Mi 6X stole the show. And honestly, those Mi 6X portrait shots, they were spectacular. And I honestly think this is why Xiaomi has actually released the 6X, you know, this version before they release the A2 in a couple months, because they're really honing and perfecting the software on the Mi 6X so that when it finally comes out as a Mi A2, it's gonna be a stellar camera for the price. Just a stellar camera. Maybe even competing with the OnePlus 6, with the Mi 8, we shall see. Now, looking at the other shots, one other question that I had actually in my FAQs, and I've been getting recently, was, is there a more wide angle? Is the Mi 8 SE displaying some sort of wide angle-ness in its shots? And I think you saw it there in the video. It actually is, and I don't know how to pinpoint it, but you see it there. And I shot the photos on both of these, and this is on my honor, guys, at 4:3 in exactly the same settings for both of these. And for some reason, that happened. It just kept happening, that the Mi 8 SE's shots were a little bit more zoomed out, and I couldn't really pinpoint why. But I can definitely see there that there's probably a wider lens setting or some sort of a wider kind of like a wider field of view on the Mi 8 SE. So if that's something that you guys value, to see a bit more of your shot, the Mi 8 SE definitely had wider, kind of more visual shots. In terms of color, I think both phones did pretty well. I definitely give the edge to the Mi 8 SE on some of those kind of shots of the food, of my tacos. I think the low light shots though were really a toss up, and there were some shots there, and I think definitely the one, the outdoor shots there of the buildings in my area. I think the Mi 6X really held its own. In fact, I like the photos on the Mi 6X for low light better than the Mi 8 SE. So it really is a toss-up, guys. This one is really interesting, and I want to get your thoughts on what you guys think. You know, which of these two was the better performer, at least from my unscientific, but I think pretty thorough camera test that I did. And you know, definitely want to get your thoughts and you know, see what you guys thought there. If I had to pinpoint, and if I had to choose, what is the best camera? Which is the best one on these two? I really don't know what I would say, but I will say, and I will give my thoughts, at least in terms of preference. So like, let's say if you prefer really great portrait shots, really great kind of just overall shots, and if you want kind of a slick, easy experience in terms of software that doesn't need to be improved, I think your answer is right here. The Mi 6X is performing really smoothly. They've obviously updated the camera multiple times, and at least, especially in terms of the video, I would say the Mi 6X performed really admirably. So this is the end of the video, guys. Really want to get your thoughts on which camera you think performed better here. Which camera performed better in still photography, in front or rear-facing photography. Which camera performed best in with video. And I actually obviously did only a little bit of testing there with these, but I gotta say, like, these two phones really went toe to toe there, and there's probably a reason why the Mi 6X has been the comparison you guys have been really wanting to see, because it's been such a close battle with these two. I honestly feel the Mi SE probably edged out in terms of some of the daylight shots and in terms of color and some of that, but I think the Mi 6X held its own in the portrait shots, in the some of the low light shots, and I think it did really, really well in terms of just video, in terms of the stabilization. Both of these phones did pretty well on that, but I would definitely give the edge to the Mi 6X in this case. But let me know, guys, what your thoughts were. You know, who you think performed better here, and definitely hit me up with any questions, any comments you want to get about these two phones. Definitely going to be doing a few more comparison videos coming forward. Next one on my docket is the gaming comparison, and that's one, it's kind of like a performance slash battery slash gaming comparison that I'm going to get for you guys. And I'm doing an apps loading test. So someone asked me about doing a speed test between these phones, and I'm going to do something of that, like, you know, send an apps loading test to see, you know, how these perform. And it's nice that they're both the 6 GB version, so that should be a pretty fair test, really, between these two and between the two Snapdragon processors. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Definitely hit me up, and if you like the video, definitely give me a thumbs up there. If you love the video, if you really appreciate the content I'm doing, definitely subscribe to my channel, guys.